The Battle of Taejon, fought between July 14th and July 21st, 1950, during the opening phase of the Korean War, was a dramatic confrontation that highlighted both the ferocity of the North Korean advance and the desperate attempts of the United States to slow it down while awaiting reinforcements. When North Korean forces crossed the 38th parallel on June 25, 1950, they advanced with extraordinary speed, their columns spearheaded by Soviet-supplied T-34 tanks and well-trained infantry that had gained experience during previous conflicts. South Korean forces collapsed quickly under the assault, and the United Nations, led by the United States, rushed troops into the peninsula to prevent a total defeat. Among the first to arrive was the U.S. 24th Infantry Division under Major General William F. Dean, which was tasked not with defeating the enemy outright, but with conducting delaying actions to buy time for stronger American and UN units to be brought into the fight. The division had already suffered serious setbacks at Osan, Pyeongtaek, and Chochiwon, losing men, equipment, and much of its cohesion. By mid-July, its next stand was at Taejon, a crucial city in central South Korea whose roads and railways linked directly to the southern regions, making it a vital objective for both sides. The defense of Taejon was marked by fierce resistance, despite overwhelming disadvantages. The U.S. troops were poorly equipped against the North Korean armor, with their available bazookas often ineffective against the thick armor of the T-34s, and they lacked sufficient artillery or air support to turn the tide. North Korean forces, estimated at around 15,000 to 20,000 men with dozens of tanks, greatly outnumbered the approximately 11,000 Americans of the 24th Infantry Division, many of whom were inexperienced and unprepared for the brutality of the conflict. The North Koreans used their superiority in numbers and mobility to encircle Taejon, launching probing attacks that gradually wore down the defenders. Between July 14 and 19, the fighting intensified outside the city as the 24th Infantry Division attempted to hold successive defensive lines, but each position eventually collapsed under relentless pressure, forcing a fallback closer and closer to Taejon itself. By July 19, the battle had shifted into the city, and American troops were forced into brutal street-by-street, house-by-house combat. The defenders erected makeshift barricades using sandbags, vehicles, and even debris, attempting to slow the tanks and infantry pouring into the streets. Urban fighting produced chaotic and bloody encounters, with soldiers resorting to grenades, flamethrowers, and small arms fire at point-blank range. Civilian refugees clogged the roads, making the retreat even more difficult, while constant North Korean artillery fire and sniper attacks added to the confusion. General Dean was deeply involved in the defense, personally leading men into combat, destroying at least one enemy tank with grenades, and attempting to hold the collapsing lines together. His leadership under fire became legendary, though in the end it could not alter the outcome. On July 20th, the North Koreans launched their decisive assault, overwhelming the exhausted defenders. The U.S. units began a disorganized retreat, many attempting to break through enemy lines to escape southward, while others were cut off and surrounded. Casualties mounted rapidly, with hundreds killed and thousands captured. In the chaos, General Dean was separated from his troops while trying to organize resistance and aid the wounded. After several days wandering in the hills, he was captured by North Korean forces and became the highest-ranking American officer taken prisoner during the war, spending the next 3 years in captivity before being released in 1953. By July 21, Taejon had fallen completely into North Korean hands, and the 24th Infantry Division was left shattered, having suffered roughly 3,000 casualties, including killed, wounded, and captured. Despite this heavy defeat, the stubborn stand at Taejon was not in vain. The stubborn resistance of the 24th Division had delayed the North Korean timetable by nearly a week, buying precious time for additional U.S. and UN forces to arrive in Korea and organize the defensive perimeter around Pusan. This delay proved critical in allowing the United Nations to maintain a foothold in Korea, as the Pusan Perimeter would soon become the last defensive line before the entire peninsula might have been overrun. In hindsight, the Battle of Taejon demonstrated the unpreparedness of American forces in the early days of the conflict. Shortages of modern weapons, inadequate training, and insufficient coordination with South Korean allies. But it also revealed the extraordinary courage and sacrifice of soldiers who fought against overwhelming odds. The battle is remembered as both a tactical defeat and a strategic success, a costly stand that contributed to the eventual stabilization of the front and laid the groundwork for the UN counteroffensive that would follow later in 1950.